We had a teacher who was so strict you weren't allowed to breathe in her lessons. She used to stand out the front going, "No breathing!" And you had the whole morning to get through. The weak ones just used to keel over and die.
Welcome, girls who want to drive and owners of the iPhone 5 to the Bradley Uppercrust podcast, the only podcast.
The only one.
It's the only one. I am August.
I'm Demonica.
And this collective mess of a conversation is what we call a show.
Yeah, and also, what if you're a girl and you also have an iPhone 5?
Well, that's the thing. It's like double negative. It cancels out.
Oh my god. Do you disappear?
No, you reappear. From where?
So there's two of you?
Yes.
Oh my god.
They don't teach you about that in school. It's a really covert thing they've tried to hide.
What else have they been hiding from me?
We can't go into what else the teachers don't tell you about, but we can tell you about our teachers. We have both made it somehow out of the public education system. The public education system.
The shitstem.
The shitstem. And we have some thoughts on it, particularly those headmasters, teachers, the belligerent ghouls who haunt the Manchester schools.
I like ghouls.
Pools, yes.
I like Monster High school ghouls.
Monster High Ghoul School, yeah.
Ghoul School, hell yeah.
Banger show.
It's a banger. I identify very much with the character of Claudia.
I'm more into Draculora myself.
Anyways, so yeah, today's topic is weird teachers and I guess stories we have from our public school experiences.
Yes.
And I guess what to start with, I guess. Where do you want to start?
To me what makes sense logically is starting with our shared experience and then branching out from there.
All right, yeah, fair.
Yes, because it is the shared experience at the career center which actually led us to meet, and it was there we had a particularly interesting set of teachers. We took a videography class together.
Yep.
which was kind of run by two separate teachers who kind of focused on different aspects of videography.
Yeah, Mr. Oh no! He was mostly covering film and narrative, cinematography and stuff. Meanwhile, Mr. Walker was sort of a public TV kind of guy.
He was newsroom kind of more that vein, I would say.
Yeah, so both important career paths in video, but distinct. We learn different things.
Yeah, that was definitely kind of the atmosphere that was two people presiding over this, but they both certainly had large personalities, which I guess, in a sense, is kind of essential to teaching in general, just being a very a person who can put a lot of emphasis into their words and really carry yourself. But what's particularly interesting about teachers is when they kind of subvert that traditional charisma in a very unique way that can be kind of weird and unpalatable a lot of times. And these
and despite like all the fun and like cool stuff that we got to do, it was always kind of like walking on eggshells with some teachers. At least for me, it felt like that.
No, there were definitely teachers like that, and I suppose we should just get into our subjects here and what makes these two in particular interesting or of note.
Yeah. So, Mr. Oh no! What to say about the H-Man?
The H-Man. This is tough because I really don't know where to start. Because he was a very peculiar figure.
I guess I'll start by saying, like, he literally looks like Mr. Jefferson from Life is Strange.
Your purity inspires me so much, and we could be so happy together. Who needs selfies when I can give you portraiture?
Which was very scary which is really scary because he in the games also worked with cameras and he had a whole photography studio, and like fucking a photography like teacher isn't that far off from a videography teacher.
Oh yeah.
And he looked exactly like him, which was very sus.
Oh god, it's so funny because that just like brought up a deep-seated memory where I know you had told me that before, but it's been so long since I've thought about that. Yes, but that Mr. Walker, on the other hand, not as physically notable, kind of like he
was just kind of there.
He kind of looked like the guy who would repair your sink if it was broken.
Oh God, you're right. Yeah.
But the most fascinating part about him was his name, I would say.
Which, if you want to say it with me on 3.
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Doug Walker.
His name was fucking Doug Walker. And I remember like raising my hand, bringing him over to like my desk and asking him like, so your name is Doug Walker? And like we were both sitting next to each other, and when he like said like yeah, we both started like cackling to ourselves.
Oh yes.
And I think that's the moment we really established that like both of our single brain cells sort of just like reacted at the same time.
Yes, they were perfectly aligned for that moment.
And we were just cackling about Doug Walker.
Doug Walker.
God, the thumbnail is just gonna have like an image of Doug Walker and like Mr. Jefferson from Life is Strange. Yeah, so like Mr. Walker wasn't that like strange. It was mostly just his name that we thought was like funny.
Yeah, I remember he had a couple moments where he would like and this isn't necessarily strange, but he would call me like Augustus or Augustine a couple times. I mean, it's not the weirdest thing in the world, but it is a little to have like a...
Was it just like a nickname, or was it like just casually like you forgot your name?
I have to assume it was like a nickname thing, but
It's like a
it's
nickname you didn't agree to.
yes, but I mean it's still a little weird nonetheless to just
Yeah, no.
assert a nickname onto someone.
Hey, Aaron, where are you? Where is Aaron right now?
Here.
Oh, man. Why didn't you answer me the first time I said it, huh?
Huh?
I'm just asking, I said it like 4 times, so why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
Son of a bitch! You done messed up, Aaron!
Mr. Oh no was interesting to me because there were just like little like peaks I felt that we got into like what kind of person he was. Because I remember one time we had walked into class and he had like a self-help book just on his desk. Not disparaging people who read self-help books, but it just made me like very curious about like where he was in his life.
And I will say he's definitely someone who had a bit of a, and I can say this with confidence, is that I know there was definitely some stuff behind the scenes that wasn't working out for him. And that's, nothing personal, but there were definitely times when that kind of thing peeked through in kind of strange ways.
Right, yeah. And God, actually I think the first thing that tipped me off was the first script that he handed
Oh,
to
yes.
us to film, because I remember pretty much from like day one of like reading that script, then having to perform it, I was weirded out very much by the way Mr. Oh no wrote like teenage girls in his script.
It was a really
It was very sort of stereotypical, like does not know how girls works or doesn't know how like they interact. Um
And what's so weird about this script, and I guess every script we did in that class, is that, to my understanding, they had not been updated in years. Like, most of our assignments were recycled from 2006 or something.
oh gosh.
Because, yeah, like, it felt so... That's the thing, that whole class felt
I guess
anachronistic, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say that too. I guess he just had that much confidence in like the ability of that script. You think he'd like write something else at some point?
Or just get something from the internet.
Yeah, because like it's not like everything we worked with was like stuff from that class.
Yeah, no,
'Cause,
they
like,
didn't
we-
create
we-
every material.
Yeah, I remember in that class we were given like that package of like footage of like what was it, like some adult parking into like their driveway.
Oh, yeah, it was the King Kong thing.
Yeah. And like we were also given access to like royalty free like music and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were able to like download like audio and stuff.
Yes, I remember that. It was like a pretty comprehensive library, too.
Yeah, and it was all like pretty high quality. So I was trying to find like the funniest, like not funniest, but just like what I could get away with, and I found this song. I guess like a hip hop kind of song, but it was literally like, just like a synth, and like some guy, like who's like very drowned out in bass is like money cash hoes.
Oh, yeah!
Money cash hoes. Money cash hoes. And so like I played that over like the footage of this person like parking into the driveway, and I think I also added like shaking and like vibrating to like the frame.
Oh, yeah, I
Because like
remember
because
that.
the bass is just so loud is what I wanted to convey. So money cash hoes, money cash. But it was like right after or like in the middle of that assignment that I think I was taken out of the class, unfortunately.
Sadly.
So I never got to finish Money Cash Hose, the short film. If I can, I guess there's an elephant in the room that we experienced in this class,
Oh yeah.
which so there was like this what was it, like a sort of like club that we as like students of videography could join.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, before we were presented that, we were made to watch a video, and do you wanna tell the listeners about this video?
So this was a video by PragerU.
PragerU, and it was, in particular, I think I can find it, but it was like,
It was Mike Rowe in the video because I remember his name was said like 50 times in that class. Like Mike Rowe, Mike Rowe, Mike Rowe.
yeah, micro. It was like the video of don't follow your passion.
In my opinion, you have all been given some terrible advice. And that advice is this: follow your passion. I mean, how can Lady Gaga possibly know where your passion will lead you? It's easy to forget the dirty truth. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you won't suck at it. Never follow your passion, but always crap your passions. I'm Mike Rowe from MicroWorks for Prager University.
Basically kind of telling us to like go fuck ourselves and not like give a shit about this class.
Yeah, it was
Like, hey,
so
this is a
funny.
job, don't be passionate about it.
Don't do anything you like in life. Be miserable.
And like fucking don't expect to like fucking enjoy yourself here was basically the message I guess he wanted to send us. It was like, hey, fuck you.
Fuck you.
So that, I think we were like sitting next to each other when we were watching that. Or at
Oh,
least
yeah.
like at the same table, right?
Yeah, at least.
Like in the back of the class, and I think I remember like us like giggling just at the prospect of like we were all gathered, and like the room was dark. We were all gathered into like this dark like classroom.
Oh yeah, and it
Like,
was like
upstairs.
us and a couple other like classes in the building were there too.
So the atmosphere was like all these different students from different classes were being gathered in this like dark classroom upstairs, and then like there was a projector, and just immediately the PragerU logo, and we just started like losing our shit, but like trying to like contain ourselves. I don't know how much of that like our teachers like saw or caught on to.
I know
whenever
we
we
at
would sort
least
of,
got
like-
like one mean look from one of them. I have no recollection who, but I remember out of the corner of my eye looking over, and one of them was just looking at us disappointedly.
Like, hey, pay attention to the PragerU.
Pay attention to the
Please.
PragerU.
But yeah, that's our shared experience at this class. Those are the only two teachers that we've had together because we were both from different schools, and we were just sort of like we would just like be carried to like this other class. Which, actually, if I can mention, there was that time where, and like this was like a problem between like the schools and like the transportation, because I was always enthusiastic about the class, right? And I always wanted
Yes.
to be there at the right time. But the issue was, so I live in like the north part of the city, right?
Yeah.
And the school I was going to was like in like Bellevue, like just outside the city.
So yeah, you
on
were
the south side.
basically
and-
going across opposite sides of the city.
Yeah, I was basically crossing like the whole city, going to my school, and then taking the bus from that city back up north to like the center of the city,
Yes.
which is very counterintuitive. The bus for the career center would literally be leaving the moment my bus from up north was getting to my school. Like I would watch it leave, which upset me like very much, and I'd have to end up like just not going like that day, and like that happened a couple times, and it just bothered me a lot. I wanted to sort out the situation. Later, I worked out like I was given a pass to sort of like go up to like North High and like get on their bus to the career center. But I remember one time I believe I had made it late. And it was never really that late, was it? It was just like when class was just about like starting.
I wouldn't say you were ever terribly late. You were like at most, well, at least on the days that you were late and still showed and ended up showing up. You were at most like 5 minutes late, but I remember Mr. would get quite agitated about that.
And like that's what I mean though, because it was never like a truancy problem with me. It was literally just like transportation, like complications. I guess one day in particular, it was the last straw. It was Mr. had it up to here with me with my truancy. He deemed me criminally insane.
Then the Avalanches song starts.
Yeah.
That boy needs therapy.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, he deemed me criminally insane and went off on me. Like, and then everyone started like staring at him and me.
That's what I remember.
He was just like, hey, I'm like, you have to start getting here early and stuff, and like, but like, I think what he thought was like I was driving myself to school, which I wasn't.
Yeah, no, that was such a weird situation.
Yeah, and like I think, like he said, like he'd end up like reporting me or something if I like kept like getting to class late. I didn't understand what was happening.
Oh gosh, you're unlocking so many like weird, uncomfortable memories, which I had just completely forgotten because I totally remember that day now. That was such a weird like. Yeah, because it was like, no, you didn't say anything, and it was just weirdly silent for a couple seconds after he finished his tangent.
But yeah.
Gosh, that's crazy. I have no idea how I forgot any of that.
But that's pretty much the summation of our shared experience in that class together. Were there any like teachers personally that you had that you thought were maybe a bit eccentric?
There was one guy who I had to rack my brain, and I realized, oh wait, this is the perfect person to mention for this. It was a guy called Mr. Yikes! He was generally a really cheery, kind of fun guy. I didn't mind him. I thought he was quite nice, but... And this wasn't something I experienced, but it was evidently in his world religions class where he let kind of the weird side of him show, because I had him in history, mostly. And as I understand it, he would take his students on field trips to the local synagogues
that's not so
in town.
So far.
And the problem was he would act very strange in these synagogues where, as I understand it, he would like basically talk over the tour guide, because they had a tour guide, but he would like interrupt them and correct them at points.
Okay, wait, no. I'm gonna wait to see like what he's correcting.
And it was I don't know exactly what it was being corrected, but it was like, even if sometimes he was wrong and he was just making a fool of himself, but even when he was right, it was like over weird like squibbly tangential stuff that doesn't really matter. So odd thing, but as I understand, the worst incident of it was when they actually got to the Torah. So, most sacred text in all of Judaism, and notably one that you are only supposed to open on certain occasions, like at a bar or bat mitzvah. And you're also notably not supposed to put it on the floor. So what does Mr.
Yikes!
try? He tries to take the Torah away from the tour guide and roll it out over the floor to show the students like the scope of the thing and how big the scrolls actually are. And it's just like this weird, wildly disrespectful thing.
Yeah. And you say he was like a world religions teacher?
Yes. And this was a field trip that was a part of his class.
Okay, I'm not even gonna sit here and say like, oh, he should have known that. He should have just known to like let the tour guide be the teacher that day. He would not have to like do a single thing. Like literally, just like being a teacher during a field trip is like the easiest. Like during a tour is like the easiest fucking thing because you don't even have to teach. You can just be there and enjoy the tour.
Oh, absolutely.
But like having to like force yourself, like just not resisting, like having to like correct someone about their own religion.
It's really weird.
Yeah, no, what the fuck? I mean, okay, the way you were setting that up made me worried. Like this Mr.
Yikes!
guy was gonna say like, well, actually, it was 4 million, but then they inflated it. And I was like so scared. But no, but this is still like fucked.
I mean, the angle of Holocaust denialism. I mean, I guess the only reason he gets away with not doing that is because he's also a history teacher who focused on World War I and II. Like every history teacher for that matter, but
Literally, yeah.
that's more of a digression than anything, but that's just my kind of weird experience or knowledge of a teacher who I had.
So I don't know what your experience is with this type of teacher, but I had notably like a couple like libertarian teachers. There was like this teacher who I had for like a personal finance class. And so of course, you know, this man was like he wasn't a terrible person. He was not a terrible person from what I knew, and he was pretty cool with me. You know, but there were just like some like eccentricities about him. He was sort of like this. He looked a lot like if George Costanza was like fully bald and a bit like more chubby. But like, just like, you know, but he was cool. Um, but I think I remember like first day of class I had with him. I'm like looking around the classroom and I'm looking at the walls, and like next to like his desk, there's like on the wall, there's like this huge like anarcho-capitalist flag. And so then like I'm like, sir, are you like an anarcho-capitalist? Basically, yeah, he was like an anarcho-capitalist. He was a libertarian. I was like, oh, okay. And I guess because of like, I won't say it's because he was a libertarian, but this definitely probably informed his libertarianism. He would like half joke about not paying his taxes, and actually like tell no, literally he would tell us that he would talk to us about how taxation is theft, and how like you know, our money is being stolen. And like he would also joke about like doing like dubious stuff on the deep web. Not him doing it, but just saying like, he was just like, hey, did you know that you could do this? And he would bring it up like enough times that I remembered it. He would talk about like, hey, you can like buy a fucking, well, he wouldn't say fucking, but he would say like, did you know that you can buy like an amputee hooker on deep web? And like and I was just like, oh no.
That's precisely
Like-
bizarre.
like behaviorally, he was not a bad person. He was like an okay dude, and he had a good taste in music when we were like listen to music, but like he would just say weird things sometimes, and like yeah, quite funny to me that our personal finance teacher would tell us that would talk to us about how taxation is theft.
No, that's a very good piece of irony there. Oh, that's weird. That's insane.
Yeah. And he's not the only libertarian teacher I had, is the thing.
Oh
Because
no.
I the thing is, like, most libertarians I meet are not terrible people. They're like a bit eccentric, a bit edgy sometimes, but most of the time, like, they value like personal freedom, which I can appreciate at least.
Yes, yes.
But I had this other teacher who I only had for like some weeks. You know, it was just for like a short stint I had to do. He was like this I believe world history teacher. Um and he was like this like sporty like libertarian Jewish man. He was like a bro, like very much like a young bro in his 30s who was also Jewish and a libertarian. And like
This
he was
already sounds
nice.
like an interesting combination of human.
Yeah, no, and like he was nice, but it would always get very awkward whenever we would have to discuss like current events. We would watch or like we would search for articles on the internet, and like he'd have it up on his projector, and he would just like be like, "Hey, everybody, like write down like these articles, like write down the headline, then write down like the points that we read."
Oh yeah, I mean I had teachers who did something of that nature, although I imagine there's a bit of a twist coming to this.
The thing is, like, with the climate of current events, it eventually got to the topic of like snopes, no leaps, snares.
Oh dear.
And like I don't know if he knew. I mean, I think I was like visibly like, different like that. But it got to that subject, and I tried to be as tactful and like not as weird as possible, even though I'm like somewhat opinionated. But I tried not to like make people uncomfortable. And so it ended up just like being like me talking to the teacher from my desk about like the issues and like talking points and all that, and like having this dialogue with the occasional other student being like, yeah, but like how does that happen, like how do you do that, like what, like people that are just, and I'm not saying like they had to have had like an opinion or like the right one, but it feels like that's just inviting sort of like people to like form their opinions on the spot right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the kind of what if-ism principle is definitely something that can easily be put into full effect in that kind of scenario where you just tell someone, "Hey, look at this," and form your opinion about it. This deeply
Right now.
complex issue in 4 minutes. Go.
And so it came up to just sort of like agreeing to disagreeing, which I never like, because it's just like, hey, like like I don't want to say that you've bested me or whatever, so let's just agree to disagree.
No, it's like a real that whole kind of agree to disagree thing is just a very weird like the simple fact of a lot of the issues we're kind of referencing here is that there isn't a happy medium where both sides get a little of what they want. It's like
Like
it all has to go one way or another.
yeah, and thing is, like, I don't even disrespect like opinions or ideas different from mine if they're informed, if like they're like an actual like idea and not like a blurb,
Yeah, yeah.
because like
That Tucker Carlson guy's real smart. I'm gonna say what he says.
yeah, no, because like the whole like issue is like pretty complicated, and so were like a lot of the issues we discussed. Like these are all like things that you cannot fit within like a short like 5-minute class debate.
Absolutely not. It's multifaceted stuff. That's
Like very like extremely multifaceted, but they wanted to like compact it.
It's very funny you say that now, that because I know I had like a class that was a dead ringer for that, where it was like I was the only person with my particular political position, and not that I'm some friggin' like I need someone to agree with me in every scenario, but it was like a class of 20 people where it was myself, there's one other guy who was kind of more in the middle of everything, I would say, a bit more centristy, and then everyone else, and it was a very weirdly uncomfortable experience. Although
I cannot even imagine what kind of class that would have to be, so you would like end up with that dichotomy. Was this like a fucking like what was that?
Oh, it was, I forget what the class was called, but it was some like freaking like it was definitely a politically charged and like focused class. It had a lot to do with current issues. I am completely blanking on the name for whatever reason.
I was gonna say, was it like a political science kind of class?
It was something, yeah, of that vein, but it was like a kind of a softer version of that, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's kind of funny the kind of people you find in like a political science class, because like a lot of it is just like guys who watch like a million SJW like owned videos and think they have all the talking points, and they're ready to like own their teachers in a class and be like the everyone clapped people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're like so ready. So then when they like enter that class and like everyone's just having like a reasonable discussion and there's like decent talking points from like both ends.
What
and,
you
like,
mean I can't make fun of the most extreme version of one position?
Like, and like they're trying to like, and like they're the people who like try to like push whoever they're talking to into like being like an SJW triggered lol.
Oh yes,
Like,
yes.
Yeah, and like because like they're fully expecting that of someone, but then they're like really taken aback that they have to have an actual conversation.
You mean I actually have to engage with the other person's points? How dare you?
You mean I just can't call someone a trigger, a triggly?
Why are you no Triggly Puff? No.
Triggly Puff. Triggly Puff. But yeah, God. But yeah, those kinds of classes are always funny though. I guess that's my experience with like libertarian kinds of teachers though. And I guess if you wanna, we can talk about like the best teachers we've had, maybe.
Yeah,
You can
sure.
go first.
I think that's a good idea to go into. Just to cap off this segment and be like, it's not all awful. Because
No, definitely not.
I think one of my favorite teachers I had was a guy named Mr. who had very similar taste in music with him, which as you've mentioned is always a plus. Like, we would talk a lot about like progressive rock and metal, particularly stuff like Frank Zappa and like Ween were big points of connection for us. And it got to the point where I was like, I emailed him after the class was actually over and kind of kept some correspondence with him. Unfortunately, I guess that's just kind of fallen off because I've sent him a couple and just haven't got a response, but he was just a really nice, personable guy who cared a lot about the subject he was teaching. And that was very obvious because he really valued everyone getting their point in and being heard in a class.
Yeah, and what kind of class was this for?
It was the one I was talking about earlier, actually, where it was like the kind of light political science one.
All right.
Which he was what made that class bearable for me, is that he had such like a spark of energy to him and was such an enjoyable presence that I was like, wow, I just think this is a great class.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, because like it's always great to like have like a teacher who's like passionate about what they're teaching.
Yeah, and he was like 1 year into teaching too, which was insane. And as I understand it, unfortunately, he plans to leave teaching because he was just not a fan of like the way COVID and such impacted that environment, and thought it just did a really terrible hit to the education system. So it's
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah, because it's always great to have someone who like actually is like passionate about wanting to like, sort of actually like teach and like express like what it is that they're teaching,
yeah, totally.
actually like reaching out and making sure like people understand what it is that they're studying. Because I guess throughout like my whole like school career, there were always like those teachers that were just there. They were just there. You got the book, you picked up the book from like the table. You were just there. You did whatever was on the board, and they like stayed out of your hair. And then there were like teachers who were like passionate and would like have dialogues with you and like sort of like talk to the class, have like collaboration, give you that just a little bit of leeway in your assignment so that you could like accomplish it and still had to have had like put in the effort, which I always appreciated in a teacher who understood like different students' abilities. Because it's never about like, can you finish the assignment? It's, do you understand the work,
Oh yeah. No, I love
like
it.
That should be the aim of teacher. Like that should be like the aim of like teaching most of the time. Like do you understand what you're doing?
It should not be about like, just here's the rhetoric, memorize it. It should be about, can you learn the rhetoric in your own way?
Literally, the goal of like teaching a subject should be like, can you educate someone to the point where then they can teach someone else? And I feel like the best classes I was in and like the best teachers I had informed me enough that I could then carry a conversation and talk to and teach other people about the subject. Two of like the better classes I had a good time in were my theater/drama class and my psychology class. I just really enjoyed like the teacher at my school who taught psychology. He was a very fun guy, and he really liked the Chicago Cubs because he just had like Cubs stuff just like everywhere on his desk. He also drank a lot of coffee, and he looked like someone who drank a lot of coffee. Like,
yeah, that evokes a very particular kind of person.
Like, imagine like Simon Pegg drinking coffee with like a Chicago Cubs t-shirt on, and that was my teacher.
Okay. No,
and
my immediate imagination was like pretty close to that description, honestly.
Yeah, but he was a very fun guy, and we got to like do some pretty like interesting assignments. I got to learn a lot about behavioral and like the whole. Actually, I learned nothing because I'm blanking out on everything I learned right now. But you can believe me, I had a pretty alright experience in that class, and I felt like I learned stuff.
And this was
No.
like a behavioral psychology kind of class, or
Well, it was like a general like sort of psychology. We
Okay.
learned about all kinds of psychology.
Got it.
Behavioral was just like I think the first thing we learned about.
got it.
But we learned about like behavioral psychology and like also like neurology and like how like our brain chemistry like affects like our emotions and like mental state and everything.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like pretty much it was a very multifaceted class like, and it was quite interesting. And like the concept of like nature versus nurture was brought up in every subject. We would always talk about it, and like our opinions and ideas of it would evolve throughout the class, which was always like fun to have those discussions.
Oh yeah, no, I love stuff like that where that's kind of like what I'm doing in college for biology, I guess, to tie it back to something where like you start with a baseline and kind of building from that is always, I think, a great way to structure a class, because it lets people connect stuff back and kind of form those lasting bonds in their head.
Yeah, it's essentially treating the class like a whole like essay, because you're starting the class with a thesis, right? With like a question or sort of like bringing you to a conclusion at the start of the class, and then asking that question all throughout, and then like watching your conclusion evolve.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I think was one of the better, maybe best, like school experiences I had. There's still like a plenty like more teachers I had that were still like weird, or that I wasn't like very like comfortable with, or who were just, I guess, interesting. But that's Nebraska education for you.
Yes. How succinctly put.
Yeah. Is there like anything you want to say to close this off?
Not in particular. If we think of more teachers like this, we can always, or more experiences in school worth sharing, we can always do like a part 2 to this. But I guess
if we have more teachers like this,
yes,
we could do it. So now we have to go out of our way to find eccentric teachers.
Email us your addresses. We will
email us your addresses. we
dox
will find
yourself.
Your teachers. We will find your teachers. We'll dox your teachers.
Yep.
That is the Bradley Uppercrust podcast promise. We will dox your teachers.
We will dox your teachers.
And with that, this has been the Bradley Uppercrust podcast. Remember, we will dox your teachers.